Okay, it's time for another Affinity Photo tutorial. Today we're going to be covering how to make a paint spatter text effect, something like what you're seeing here. So let's go ahead and get started. Start off with a blank canvas of 1920 by 1080. And the very first thing we're going to do is bring in our text. So I am using a text called Supersonic Rocket Ship. I'm going to type in the word splat. All right, so to create this effect, we're going to need to mask out this text with a mask layer. I'm using some crack brushes. They look like cracks. I found it on a website called brusheasy.com. I'll put a link here on the video. I highly suggest you go there if you're looking for brushes. They have like thousands of different brushes, all different effects that will work in Photoshop as well as Affinity. So I highly suggest you check that out. So, all right, so what we're going to do here right away is we're going to add a mask layer to this text, and we'll come over to brushes, and I've already got my crack brushes loaded up here. So I'm going to grab this one right here. I'm going to grab my brush tool here, make sure that I'm painting with black, and you can see it's a pretty large brush, but I'm just going to kind of give it a couple of little whacks here. And that is more than enough right there. So now that we have our text with a mask, we're going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. And the reason I'm doing that is because if you zoom in closely here, you can see it's really not cutting out all of the black. You know, these brushes are a little bit of grayscale. So to fix that, I'm going to go ahead and turn off this bottom layer for now so we don't get confused. We'll take this layer, and I'm going to rasterize and trim it, so it bakes that mask right into it. And then I'm going to come up here to select, and I'm going to come down to tonal range, and I'm going to select just the shadows. So this is just highlighting the black portion of the text. And I'm going to copy that, Command C, paste it into its own layer, Command V, and then deselect. And then I'm going to get rid of this layer completely. As you can see, that kind of cleaned up that gray quite a bit. All right, and then, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that layer off, turn this layer back on, and on this one what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer again, and I'm going to turn this bottom one off. Now on this one, I'm going to take this mask layer and I'm going to invert it. So I'm going to hit Command I. And all that does is reverses it completely there. Then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to rasterize and trim this layer. Then we'll come up here to select, tonal range. We're going to select just the shadows on this one as well. Command C to copy. Command V to paste it into its own layer, and Command D to deselect. And then we will go ahead and get rid of this layer here. So effectively what we're left with is this, and if we turn on the uppermost layer, this, which makes up our entire text. So let's start off with that top layer first. And we're going to come there, we're going to go to Layer Effects, and we'll start off by giving it a color overlay. And so let's give it over to red, and we're seeing that black portion through it. So we'll leave that alone like that for right now. And then we'll come down to the next layer, turn on layer effects for that as well. Also give it a color overlay. And on this one we'll go with like a yellow. Get a little contrast in there like that. So now what we can do as well here to give it a little bit of relief is let's come up to Bevel and Emboss. And on this one I'm going to use an inner. And I'm going to break up the radius and the depth here because we don't want quite that much of a lip on it. You know, paint kind of builds up. Just really want to give it just a hint of depth there. And then we can also do the same thing with the upper layer. Come back to layer effects on that one, come to bevel and emboss, go with an inner one on that as well, split the radius and the depth, bring the radius down a little bit, play with the depth until we kind of get what we want. And here you can do a few other things. If you don't like the colors, you can go in and change your color overlay. You can add in like an inner glow. So like, let's say we wanted to add in an inner glow to this red layer. Let's come over to inner glow. And we'll start with white here and see what happens. And we'll bring up the intensity a little bit. On this one, I'm going to actually move it over to center as well. Change the color to something more complementary to that. So you can see that there's quite a few things that you can do. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I kind of want to bring in a shadow behind it, but I don't want the shadow to have any of the masking done to it. So I'm going to come back to this bottom layer here. I'm going to turn it on, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the mask layer. So I'm going to delete that entirely. And if we get rid of these top two layers, you can see we're just left with black text. So I'm going to go ahead and size that up a little bit and move it where I want it. And I'm going to kind of spread it out on either side here and a little bit top and bottom. And then I'm going to add a Gaussian blur to that. Probably give it about maybe like, I don't know, but let's say 15 pixels or so. And then to stylize it just a little bit further, I'm going to go ahead and rasterize and trim that layer. And the last thing I'm going to do is come over here to the mesh warp. And I'm just going to kind of tighten this up a little bit. So I'm going to bring in the top center and the bottom center. Kind of match those letters like that. Yeah, that's about it. So there you go. A real easy way to create kind of a spatter effect on your text. You can go back in now, since all these layer effects are still live, and change the colors to your heart's content. You can add in noise to the colors. You know, the possibilities are endless. So I hope you like that. If you did, please hit the like button or subscribe to my channel, and I will keep making tutorials like this. And until next time, peace. Talk to you later. Bye.